Are you enjoying the Story That Connects channel? Then click on follow, as it helps our channel reach people who need to enrich themselves spiritually and financially. Leave your like and comment on what you need to improve in your life. Today we are going to talk about returning to true nature, the secure foundation of joy, from which everything becomes enchanting. I call this the effect of the pure observer. This is your true nature, created to simply witness joy through God's unique gaze, within and outside the external appearances of God. This is what I would like to talk to you about today, in a way that benefits you. I have titled today's conversation, I Am Revitalized by Joy. We can say, let joy be enchanted by joy. Joy is pure consciousness. Consciousness is joy, so true nature is enchanting. As said in Genesis, and God said, let there be light. Joy is the true nature is enchanting. Raham Mahari once said that happiness is your true nature. It is not wrong to desire it. Adish Shankra also said that everything tends to move towards its true nature. I always desire happiness, which is my true nature, so there is nothing wrong with being enchanted. The individual, through identifications or the illusions of the self, thinks that joy is not the true nature, which is false. Joy is consciousness, and thus we can experience joy through God's unique gaze, not knowing evil, like a child who can only witness God everywhere. All that matters is the relationship with God, for from God's secure foundation, everything appears ideally, automatically, within and outside the external appearances of God. I and the Father are one, but the Father is greater than I, and thus I can only witness greater degrees of joy or happiness appearing more and more. Today's conversation is also inspired by the Lessons in Truth by H. Emily Cady. We will discuss Lesson 6, which deals with faith. For previous discussions on Lessons 1 through 5, I will leave the link in the description of these videos. She says, referring to Hebrews 11:1, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. In other words, she says that faith takes the substance of desired things and brings them into the world of evidence, the things that were not seen before. True nature is love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, prosperity. The individual desires to experience love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, and prosperity within and outside the external appearances of God. Since only God exists, everything else is an illusion, unreal. We can say illusions of the self, as we discussed recently. I will leave the link in the description for that video. She also says, speaking of faith, the writer said that the things which are seen were not made of things which appear, Hebrews 11:3. As mentioned, only God exists, only God is real, and since I and the Father are one, but the Father is greater than I can allow the witnessing of greater degrees of joy, love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, and prosperity appearing more and more. This is walking by faith. She says that somehow we understand that what we want is in this surrounding invisible substance, and faith is the power that can bring it into reality for us. Faith does not depend on physical facts or the evidence of the senses, and this makes sense because physical facts or the evidence of the senses are results of past identified imaginary activities, which are unfolding. Imaginary activities or the premise of truth, knowing that I am love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, prosperity, the true nature, or identifications with the illusions of the self, separation from God, the true nature of God, being love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, prosperity. Identification with the illusions of the self results in the appearances of separation from God, the true nature. She says that faith does not depend on physical facts or the evidence of the senses because it is born of intuition or the spirit of truth, always living at the center of our being. Its action is infinitely greater than that of intellectual conclusions. It is founded on truth, while intellectual conclusions are the result of reverse engineering appearances, tracing them back to what appears as causes. There is only one cause, I am. Exodus 3:14. And God said to Moses, I am who I am. Thus you shall say to the children of Israel, I am has sent me to you. She said that the Nazarene recognized the unchanging truth that in the invisible lies the supply for every human need. When he said, "Ask and you will receive," John 16:24, he was simply stating an unalterable truth, so it is an illusion of the self to suggest otherwise. Think about this. By returning to your true nature and trusting in faith, you can find the joy and fulfillment you have always sought. By opening your heart and mind to this truth, you allow yourself to be revitalized by joy, living a full life connected with the divine essence that resides in all of us. He knew that the moment we ask or desire, for asking is expressing a desire, we touch a secret spring that sets in motion the good we want. He knew that there is no need to beg or plead for it. Asking is simply fulfilling an infallible law that is bound to work. There is no escaping it. Asking and receiving are two sides of the same coin. There is a very close connection between them, for asking arises from the desire to possess some good. Thus, as mentioned, all that the individual truly desires is love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, and prosperity. This is the true nature. Everything else is an illusion, illusions of the ego that seem to suggest a separation from God, which is an illusion, for I and the Father are one, even though the Father is greater than I. Therefore, I can witness greater degrees of happiness arising every moment, for the Father is happiness. Happiness is the true nature. Everything, as Adish Shankra said, tends to move towards its own nature. I always desire happiness, which is my true nature. Therefore, as mentioned, what matters is the relationship with God. It is one of separation from happiness, which is an illusion. When we release these identifications, everything appears ideally, automatically, within and outside the external appearances of God. An example of this is when I bought my first house, which I moved into in 2007. In 2004, I read Think and Grow Rich and was $50,000 in debt. I applied the principles from the book, paid off the debt, advanced in my corporate career, started earning more money, and also saved enough to buy my first house. And then the desire to buy a house arose. However, I wanted a specific type of house. I remember visiting a friend, and on his street, there were houses that had a particular style. I recall thinking, if I were to buy a house, it would be one of these, as I have no desire to buy a house. Years later, interestingly, the desire emerged. I did an online search for houses for sale in the area where I wanted to live, and found a house that seemed acceptable, but it didn't excite me much. I met the realtor for that house, who asked if I had ever bought a house before. I said no, and he suggested we go see the house. We went to see the house, and I really didn't like it. While walking down the street, I saw another house for sale. It looked exactly like those houses I mentioned earlier, and I said I wanted to see that house. The realtor said that house was above my budget, and I replied, "That's okay, let's take a look." We went to see the house, and it was exactly what I wanted, although it was at a higher price. We know that every desire is fulfilled. Since I had the desire for that house, somehow it would become mine. And, a few months later, I ended up buying that house. I would like to share some of the beliefs that emerged during this process, false beliefs that I had the opportunity to release. Why do these ego illusions occur? Why do they appear? Well, for whatever reason, the individual form conclusions about themselves and their relationship with God, which are false, as a result of thinking in relation to life circumstances. Thought patterns that are not based on truth were identified by the individual and formed beliefs. Think about this. By asking with faith and releasing the illusions of the ego, you can achieve the deepest desires of your heart. It is a process of recognizing true nature, trusting in the natural movement of the universe, and being open to receiving the good that you deserve. In doing so, you align with divine truth and allow joy, love, and prosperity to flow into your life. Whenever you are aware of any lack, of any desire for more happiness, for fullness of joy, know that the great heart of the Father and Mother desired this for you. Part of the relationship with God is a healthy relationship with desire, knowing that the individual truly desires love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, and prosperity. These areas are your divine inheritance. As she says, it is God in you desiring these things. To feel and think that it is just you separated from God desiring this is a misconception. The separation between I and I am is an illusion, for as mentioned, I and the Father are one. The Father is I am, the consciousness of being. What am I conscious of being? That which I desire to be. Love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, prosperity, indicating that there is no separation from God. Or am I conscious of what I imagine as illusory beliefs, the illusions of the ego? Some examples would be the illusions of the ego, false beliefs like, I can't find the right house because I'm not lucky. This has nothing to do with luck. It is divine inheritance. What I desire, I have, for God is the source of love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, and prosperity. So I desire these areas. As she said, it is God in you desiring this. The individual may think that it is just them, separated from God, desiring this, which is false. So, we know it is a false statement to say, I can't find the right house because I'm not lucky, or, I can't understand the buying process because I'm not knowledgeable. And so it was with my first house. The buying process was automatically taken care of. Everything fell into place because I truly desired that house. I have noticed this in many areas of my life. Whenever I truly desire something, everything seems to align. People appear, information arises naturally, everything aligns harmoniously so that I can experience what I desire. It is only when I try to force identification with false beliefs that I confuse with desire, which do not come from the premise of love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, and prosperity, that it generates unnecessary suffering. Trying to force, control, and manipulate is the result of identification with false beliefs, the illusions of the ego. Another example. I can't negotiate a good price because I'm not assertive. Interestingly, I began to notice my assertiveness in the final stages of negotiating to close the deal. We went back and forth about the price and details. I suggested that we meet in a place where the agent selling the house could be with his clients, the property owners, in one room, and I and my agent would be in another room, with an intermediate room for us to meet. This way, we wouldn't need to go back and forth through emails and phone calls. This was entirely natural, and I was assertive at that point. He agreed, saying it wasn't something they usually did, but he accepted. In 20 or 30 minutes, we closed the deal harmoniously for both parties. So much so that the owner taught me about the garden and the landscaping, making the process easier for everyone. Therefore, the belief that I can't negotiate a good price because I'm not assertive is false. Another example. I can't handle the paperwork because I'm not organized. I had never had this experience before buying a house, but everything went well because I realized that what I desired was already within my reach, with no separation from God. God takes care of everything for me, animating everything that appears, and appearing as everything that is animated, revealing prosperity, love, happiness, peace, bliss, and fulfillment. Another example. I can't handle the stress of buying a house because I'm not resilient. This is just an illusion of the ego, the individual trying to force control, generating the stress of the purchase. I learned this from Think and Grow Rich. If you believe that money is the result of hard work alone, abandon that thought. Getting out of $50,000 debt and buying my first house was not the result of hard work, but of allowing things to happen, opportunities to align, and genuinely enjoying every aspect of the process, physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual, of manifesting that particular result from a state of flow rather than a state of force. Beliefs of force result from identification with ego illusions, false beliefs that generate unnecessary stress. There is no shame or condemnation. Calm down and release. Think about this. By embracing faith and releasing the illusions of the ego, you can achieve the deepest desires of your heart. Recognize your true nature, trust in the natural movement of the universe, and be open to receiving the good you deserve. By aligning with divine truth, you allow joy, love, and prosperity to flow into your life. Allow inspiration and intuition to flow naturally. Let things happen. The idea of, I can't leave my current home because I'm too attached, is just an illusion of the ego. You are transcendent to attachment. It is the ego that seems to be attached. I did not face this exact problem, but other challenges were overcome in the journey of manifesting my vision. That's why I always say, any vision or goal that the individual commits to realizing brings to light the illusions of the ego to be released. She says that the only way God informs us of His infinite provision and His desire to make it ours is by gently awakening the divine spark that lives within each of us. God wants you to be strong, self-sufficient, have more power and dominion over everything around you. So God quietly infuses a bit more of His desire into the center of your being. This expands your true self, and immediately you become aware of new desires to be greater, more magnificent, stronger. If God had not awakened the center of your being first, you would never have thought of new desires and would have remained perfectly content as you were. As we discussed in Sunday's video titled, All is Love Externalized, we can say that love is externalized, happiness is externalized, peace is externalized, fulfillment is externalized, prosperity is externalized. All of this is our true nature. You may think you want better health, more love, a more joyful and brighter home, all of it proper. In short, you want less evil or no evil and more good in your life. We talked about this in one of the recent chapters. I will leave the link in the description for previous discussions of this book about releasing the illusion of evil. She says this is just God pushing the inner door of your being, as if God were saying, "My child, let me in. I want to give you all the good so you can be more comfortable and happy." This desire in the heart for anything is the sure promise of God sent beforehand to indicate that it is already yours in the unlimited realm of provision. And what you want, you can have. By knowing and obeying the divine law, we can forever rest from all anxiety and fear. You open your hand and satisfy the desire of every living thing. Psalm 145:16. I hope you found this video helpful. Let's conclude with a self-suggestion to encourage you even more. I allow myself to be delighted by delight. Delight is consciousness. As God said, "Let there be light." So there is only light appearing more and more through the single eye, the eye of God, appearing as greater forms of happiness, peace, love, prosperity, and fulfillment in the outer appearances of God, for only God exists. Only God is real, and as I and the Father are one, though the Father is greater than I witness increasingly greater appearances of happiness, love, peace, bliss, and fulfillment in the outer appearances of God, in continuously increasing frequency as the senses perceive.